Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
Capital Stack. What is Capital Stack? What do we need to know about it?
George, so Capital Stack is the priority of the money in a deal as it relates to the asset as organized by the risk that it takes on. So, for example, the equity takes the most risk. That's first in the capital stack. It has the most reward. There's a mezzanine position, there's a first position of debt, second position of debt, senior secured, junior secured. There's all these different levels that stack up in the deck. So when I go out and I buy an apartment building, my capital stack 99.9% of the time looks like this. I've got the equity that comes in, which funds the borrower's equity against the mortgage it's getting, closing costs, any CapEx or one-time expenses, fees, things like that. After that, I've got a first mortgage on the property. That's the debt. There is no other debt. There's no mezzanine debt. There's no second or junior secured position. Actually, the terms of my first mortgage prevent me from getting other debt. So traditionally, that's all I'm looking at a straight up the middle apartment building acquisition, equity and a first mortgage. That's my capital stack, those two positions. The equity puts up cash, takes all of the risk, gets all of the reward in upside and cash flow and appreciation, gets the tax benefits. The bank, who puts up the money for the first mortgage debt, is secured by a lien on the property, and they get only their note rate. So if you borrow money today at 3.5%, that's all the first mortgage position gets. They get their 3.5%, and it's secured by a lien on the property. So if you go belly up and the business is a failure and the property is a failure, the bank can come in and take ownership of the property. They're going to take that, that's their collateral, they're going to sell it. They're secured. That's security for the first position, the first mortgage. There's other positions that come in a capital stack too. There's a lot of development deals that get done like this. The equity comes in, there's a mezzanine position. Mezzanine sits in between the equity and the first mortgage. There's a first mortgage holder, there's a junior secured, senior secured. There's all these other positions that come in, and they're at all different pricing. Everyone's got their own price for the money that they're going to give you, depending on where they stand in the capital stack. The more secured someone is, the more collateralized a position is, the cheaper that money is going to be, the easier that money is going to be able to be obtained. The less secured and the less collateralized, the more expensive it's going to be. You're going to have to pay a lot of points coming in, a much higher interest rate during the course of the term, and you'll typically have to pay points or fees to get out of it once you refinance everybody out and the assets matured and you have some value that you can capitalize on. So George, simply put, the capital stack is the priority of security and risk that each position that's putting in money into the deal has in relation to the asset. Me, I like to be equity because I want the rewards for my hard work. I want the rewards for identifying the deal, getting beaten up by getting it under contract and closing. I mean, that's why we're in this business. But there's a lot of people out there that are happy with non-equity positions in the capital stack. They make money off of the fees to come in, the fees to get out, and a little bit of interest along the way. There's a big industry for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And all of that money can be found. Make sure you know exactly what you're looking for. Me, typically, I just need equity and I need a first mortgage lender. If I was a ground up developer, which you know that I'm not, then you start getting into needing mezzanine capital, higher interest capital that sits behind the first mortgage with consent of the first mortgage holder. You need different levels stacking up in the capital stack. But for my business, I'm really just equity and first mortgage. Look, if you go out to buy a house, you're going to put your deposit down as a down payment on the house, and you're going to go out and get a mortgage. You're just like me that I've just described my business to be like. You've got a two-level capital stack, equity and first mortgage.
Is that what you think about when you hear the word equity? Because it's a basic term. What is the first thing you think about in the context of your world?
Equity. So what is equity? Equity is ownership of the non-debt portion of a business or a piece of real estate. Equity is the money that you put in. Equity is the ownership that you get either from investing your capital or from success fees or certain hurdles or triggers that you're able to claw some equity and participation in the deal alongside of the people that put in money, capital. But equity is direct ownership of the interest in the asset, either through stock or through direct ownership or through membership interests in an LLC operating agreement. You've got equity.
You talked in the past about kind of building equity when you're starting out by going to people that are more experienced than you and helping them increase value.
Yeah, bring them a deal. Bring them a deal that they want to invest in. If you can find a great deal and a great opportunity, the money is so there, it's so easy to get money, and the money will come.
So there's this saying, you need money to make money. Is that true? Do you
A lot
believe
of
that?
times it's true.
Okay.
A lot of times it's a version of true. If you're an entrepreneur and you can bring the concept, the execution, something proprietary to the table, and really all you need is capital, the way a lot of people get started and even grow, and I still do this myself, is that they take advantage of the carried interest or the promoted interest. So, George, if I come to you and I need $10 million and I say, hey, why don't you put up all the money, George? Here's the deal. I'll run it. This is the business plan. This is what we're going to do. Can I have 25% of the profits after you get paid back plus some sort of preferred return? And you would maybe say yes or no, or we'd negotiate whatever that deal might look like between us. But guys, that's how everyone does it. That's the secret about private equity and entrepreneurship. You don't have to have 100% of the money in order to control a large portion or a significant portion of the deal and have some opportunity for upside. As if you owned equity by putting capital in, you can earn it through other ways, other economic triggers and hurdles. So what you'll see a lot out there is people talking about, oh, the standard 80-20 deal. What's a standard 80-20 deal? Well, you see these private equity firms and these hedge funds raise $1 billion. They will give investors 80% of the profits after they've recouped 100% of their money, plus perhaps a 10 or a 12% return on top of their initial investment. And then everything after that goes 80% to the investors, 20% to the principals of the hedge fund. It's no different when you buy a small apartment building. It's no different when you get into business and you need capital or partners to start up. It's a way that you're able to get into business and still reward the capital people who are investing in you appropriately, and you're able to get something for yourself, for your sweat, for your time, for your efforts, for your banging your head against a brick wall. If you're successful, you'll make money. Your priority should always be your investors and the money and the people that invested capital with you. If you're able to deliver success to that and you can tag along with that, everybody wins. So in the 80-20 model, these hedge funds will raise billions of dollars, and they'll take an asset management fee along the way, typically 2% of the amount that they raise. So if they're raising $1 billion, 2% on $1 billion is $20 million. $20 million is what they use in this example to pay their rent, hire staff, cover the expenses of operating the business. People get a salary, do whatever business travel is necessary, all from the 2% asset management fee that they collect. So in the early years, a hedge fund's going to take that $1 billion, they're going to make some bets, take some positions, they're going to buy some companies, they're going to buy some real estate, whatever they're going to do. They're going to establish a position with that capital. A few years go by, and then they're going to have a capital event on those positions. And if they're any good at their job, they're going to have more than $1 billion a few years later, or maybe even sooner, because they made some great investments. Well, once they take the original billion and return it back to investors, and then they return back to investors on top of that another typically 8 to 15%, depending on the type of hedge fund and what the charter of that hedge fund is. Everything else gets split 80-20. Well, imagine, George, if a hedge fund turned $1 billion into $3 billion. They give the first $1 billion back to the original investors. They give $250 million back to the original investors as the preferred return. And now you're left with $1.75 billion to whack up 80-20. Well, 20% of $1.75 billion is $350 million. I mean, it's a huge amount of money for these hedge fund guys. And that's how these hedge fund guys make a lot of money.
So you need money, but not necessarily your money.
That's right. You need money, not necessarily yours. And if you're just starting out, find a great deal. Become an expert in underwriting it. Know the numbers back and forth. Take it to people who you think have an interest in investing and want to make money, and learn how to sell and pitch your concept and your business idea. You don't have to be greedy. You don't have to ask for 90% of the profits and, hey, I'll give you 10%. It's never going to happen. But maybe you start off and say, if you think it's fair, I'd love 10%. Can you put up 100% of the money? I'll take 10% after you get paid back, plus a preferred return, because you're not going to get your 10% before they get paid back. That wouldn't be
right.
fair.
You're not asking for a piece of the pie that they already have. You're asking to grow the pie and then take it on top.
Yeah, it's called the ups. You're asking, in this example, I'm suggesting you ask for 10% of the ups. As you grow, as you get a little better, as you get a better track record, as you get more experience, ask for 20% of the ups, 25% of the ups. 30, 40% of the ups. You know, it's not uncommon today to see very seasoned operators and entrepreneurs soliciting investment dollars from high net worth accredited investor community and offer them 60-40 splits over an 8% pref, or 50-50 over a 10% pref. But anything more than a 50-50, look, 50-50 is a pretty retail level deal reserved for only the best and most sophisticated of operators that have incredible track records. I will tell you that very common is anywhere from 20 to 35% of the ups over a preferred return of 8 to 12%.
Yeah. And how do you recognize those people that you could go to make that happen, to create those opportunities? Like, what are you looking for to turn those contacts into contracts, so to speak?
I was sitting with a high school friend just a few days ago, and we were having a similar but different conversation where she said, I'm divorced. I'm not really meeting the right people or the people that I thought I would be meeting. And I said, well, what are you doing? She said, well, the bars are just starting to open up, so I'm going to bars and I'm going to restaurants and I'm not really meeting. I said, well, where are you going to these places? She's telling me the places. I said, listen, I don't know how it goes, but I think you're going to have a better shot if you go to, she wants to seek a mature man, maybe who's already established and perhaps a little bit successful in whatever he may be doing in life. I said, well, it sounds to me like you need to be going to the bars and restaurants a few miles down the road in one of the other towns that might have a different economic profile of person living there. So look, if you want to meet people to do business with, if you want to meet people to raise money from, where are you going to do that? I would immerse myself in different local entrepreneur business groups. There's groups for everything now. So if you know nothing and you're starting from ground zero, go out and find people that are doing what you're doing. There's all sorts of entrepreneurship groups, small business groups, women in business groups, men in business groups. You can hang out where people with money might be hanging out. Some of the better restaurants, some of the more exclusive places. Get in, figure out how to get in and start circulating. You don't want to be making pitches to people who are poor, broke, and down and out. That's just going to be very frustrating for you. You're going to wonder, how come I'm not raising any money for my business? Well, because you're not pitching the right people.
Yeah, and we've talked about before how there's people that they drive Lamborghinis, but it's a lease. It's not their actual car. How do you spot the real deal?
Well, someone who's driving a Lamborghini is maybe a good place to start, but also a questionable place to start.
Yeah.
Everything that you see out there in the world is owned by someone. Find out who owns it. If you're raising money for an apartment building and you want to look for people that invest in apartment buildings, you can go onto LinkedIn and type in apartment building investor. You're going to get 500,000 names. If you're raising money to buy a string of coin-operated laundromats, again, LinkedIn just as one example, but you guys know all the others, and type in laundromat investor, laundromat, private equity, type all that shit in and see what you get. You're going to get names. Start there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's interesting. I think a lot of people are afraid to take the first step because they feel like they'll take a misstep.
That's funny, George. I was thinking recently, another thing that I believe that all super wealthy and successful people have in common, because we talked about this topic about what people have in common who are very successful. Here's another thing that people who are successful have in common. They are not afraid to take the first step without knowing what's ahead. They're totally comfortable figuring it out as they go because they have the confidence and the ability to completely assess the situation that's unfolding right in front of them for the first time and make good decisions. And if you have a fear of taking that first step, get over that shit quickly. You got to be able to take the first step. And it's okay that you don't know the answers to everything that's going to come your way, but you got to be okay knowing that you're going to figure it out. And I don't mean figure it out like flap in the breeze, and because everyone says, oh, figure it out, figure it out. It's like a popular phrase in culture these days. But I mean, really, you got to be able to take steps and problem solve and figure it out as you go along, and you can't be afraid of that. So yeah, that would definitely hold people back, but people that are very successful have no problem taking the first step, and they have no problem taking the second step, and they have no problem driving it home.
Absorption comes up all the time, but we haven't really directly addressed it. What is absorption?
Talking about multifamily absorption?
Yeah, more multifamily absorption. What is that? What do we need to understand about that?
So absorption in the multifamily business is, very simply put, the relationship between the amount of new vacancies that come online and the amount of new leases that get signed. So in our business, we are constantly measuring absorption. Every day, my leasing team sends out an email with different data sets and data points in there, and we're able to see, everybody's able to see what renewals are coming up, who's been renewed, who's going to move out, what the absorption is this month, what it was 12 months ago, because we want to look and measure same period 12 months prior and get a sense if we're doing better or worse. You can't manage what you don't measure. So we're always looking at how many vacancies are going to come online at the end of the month when the 30th hits and people move out. And we're going to compare that to our leasing department's activity in the new leases that were signed. What we want to see is more leases getting signed than vacancies coming up. That will reduce vacancies and constrict supply, and we'll be able to provide housing product to the marketplace. What we don't want to see is way more people moving out than there are leases getting signed, because then inventory builds up and it starts to stagnate, and the aging of the inventory will become 30 days, 60 days, God forbid 90 days, and you haven't rented an apartment. There have been times when that's occurred in our business, and even during good economic times, we put so much new product out into the marketplace that we were exceeding the absorption capacity that was present in the market at that time. If you have more vacancies coming online than you have leases getting signed, you're just going to build up your inventory. You're not going to rent apartments quickly. You're going to have to discount and give more concessions than you might want or need to be able to give to get people to sign leases. You want to be managing your absorption rates so that you're signing more leases than the vacancies are that are coming online. And if you can do that, you're running a good business and you're managing your inventory very well. We're always looking at absorption. People are saying, oh, well, how many leases do you sign a month? Oh, well, I sign 50 leases a month. Well, that's great. How many vacancies did you get? Because if you got 100 vacancies and you sign 50 leases, you got 50 apartments sitting there that you got to rent. You got to make that cash register ring. In multifamily, the way we do that is we sign new leases. And then after that, you just got to make sure your lease expirations expire in such a way that they're either dispersed evenly throughout the year, if that's good for you, or here we're in coastal New Jersey, and our big leasing season is February 15th to June, right? After that, it's pretty steady, but we do 80% of our leasing February to June because people flock to the shore. They want to secure an apartment for the summer. They have the summer, they live the rest of the year, renew their apartment the following spring in that same time frame. In mountain environments, the busy season is October, November. They secure their apartment before the ski season. Every market has its own hot time for renting. Figure out what yours is and figure out how to disperse the lease expirations so that you're not having more expirations than you are new lease signings.
The renewals are something you focus a lot on as compared to
look,
just new leases. It's not all just new leases.
Look, George, you can't stop someone from moving out if they're going to go buy a home, if they're going to start a family, if they're going to move to California, if they're going to, like, those are big life moments. You just can't do anything about that. But here's what you can do something about. We reach out to our residents and say, hey, your lease is coming up for renewal. Would you like to renew? We hope you would. 90% of the time, we get a yes, because no one's really going to leave us and our product and our price point to go to a competing price point and competing product, because we're the best product in our price point in our market. But the key is create the renewals, because you're going to control your new inventory coming back online.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I love that. So my first Zest Quest is kind of a
We're
quasi.
on Zest Quest already?
Yeah, we're on Zest Quest. We're moving fast.
Did I
today.
satisfy you with enough business savvy and real estate savvy talk today,
that's
George?
actually what I was going to say, is that this Zest Quest has a bit of a business side to it.
I feel like
So-
what we just did was very fast.
Yeah, it was pretty rapid.
I feel like I didn't really connect with you.
Yeah. This Zest Quest has, I think, application in the business world as well. I was going to say that we're living in polarizing times. I think we always are to some extent. Difficult topics have been coming up a lot recently in my life. I'm sure they come up in your life. How do you navigate that in social settings, online, that kind of thing? Do you avoid, talking about it for a little while? Do you address it immediately? What are your tactics that you tend to...
I believe that people's opinions are great. We live in a place where everyone's allowed to have a point of view. I don't really avoid it. I don't really seek it out. I'm not looking for controversy. Man, I've got friends on social media, at parties, and whatever, on the phone. Oh, the first thing they do is they go right for the election, the politics,
the hot
the
button
stuff
topic.
going on.
Yep.
And it's like, that I don't do. I don't need to be so quickly sucked into these conversations. When I'm with people, I genuinely want to know about them, how they're doing, how their family is. I talk a lot about business with people that I spend time with. What I don't like is how binary things have become. So if you don't think like me, you're a motherfucker. If you don't think like me, you're a bad person. You're wrong. Mm-hmm. You have to change. I'm right. Like it's so binary. Like it doesn't need to be, and I don't view it that way. Like, why can't you have your opinion? I have my opinion. Let's just have a beer.
Well,
Something
I think,
like that.
Yeah, and I think to your point, oftentimes these issues are not binary issues. There's nuance involved, that it's not a or B thing. It's a if B or an A if C. And so it requires more, discussion and more,
I've
nuance.
become comfortable not talking about binary issues with people because I'm just not interested in knowing about our differences. I'd rather know about what our commonalities are and what we share. Yeah, I don't avoid disagreement. I don't. In fact, I welcome controversy and disagreement. I just won't judge you because you think differently than me. I try not to, at least. Yeah, if we can just all do a lot less of that. I don't know how you do it these days. It's fucked up.
Well, and something you said about judging, something I always remember is judgment, I think is okay. Like you should have good judgment. You should be discerning about what's correct or what's incorrect. I think the problem is when you condemn the person based on that judgment. The condemnation's the problem.
It's tough.
All right, and so last question. This is a lighter topic. If you could exist in a fictional universe, any fictional universe you want, which one would you choose?
I forget the name of the movie where they go to they're like Earth is rotting and the wealthy class is able to take a spaceship and live on this planet, and it's beautiful, and they have these machines where it's like a tanning bed. They close the door of the tanning bed, and this thing scans you, and it like cures everything, and so they can cure disease and sickness. And
I wish I knew what this movie was.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think what this is.
I think it was like a Damon movie.
Okay,
where he's
he's
like the regular guy trying to fight for a space on the ship going up to this beautiful Shangri-La type of planet.
So this sounds quite scary. So you want to exist in this
So
world?
I want to exist in it?
Yeah.
I want to exist in a place where they can. So what made me think of this is the tanning bed machine that can scan you and instantly cure you. It's some sort of like quantum physical laser device that just like cures cells and sickness and illness. That's where I want to live.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
That's what made me think about it. Not that the you have to
Not
like
the
take a
class
spaceship
struggles,
up to another planet. That wasn't really my point. Thank you for giving me a chance to clarify.
No, you're
I really
welcome.
I would love to live in a place where you could just get scanned by some technological device and it can cure you. And I think in 100 years or 500 years or whatever it is, maybe it'll be like that. Something bothers me this week.
So what bothers you this week?
I was out to lunch with a bunch of people, and we were talking about someone's elderly parents that were looking to give a big piece of property to their kids who are married and those kids have kids. So this is a situation where there's a potential inheritance of a piece of land and how to go about doing that the right way. And, I like this topic, so I sort of chimed in and said, you should think about talking to someone about setting up trusts or wills and all that. Do you have that kind of stuff? And they said, no, we don't have that. I said, well, you should really look into it, because you could pay estate taxes and inheritance taxes and all sorts of taxes, and you may, at the end of the day, have to sell the property in order to just pay the taxes and then have nothing. Wouldn't that suck? Why don't you spend a couple of bucks and a little bit of time and speak with an asset lawyer or an estate planning professional or someone like that? And it seems to me like it might be a good investment to spend, 5 or 7 or 10 grand, whatever it's going to be, I don't know. But you take those steps, and then maybe you can pass this piece of property on that you're inheriting to your kids and grandkids without it getting taken by the government, because that's what happens at death and with estates. And there was one guy that was that didn't want to hear it. He thought it was maybe like he was a little angry that like that's what you had to do, and I'm not going to do that, and I don't qualify for that, and it won't matter for me, and why should I do that? That kind of thing. It made me think of the saying that if you put a shark in a fish tank, it's going to grow to be as big as the fish tank. And if you put a shark in the ocean, it's going to grow unlimited to whatever its capabilities are. And I felt like that was a very limiting mindset. I would have hoped that for most people, they would say, yeah, that sounds like the right thing. I should talk to someone, at least educate myself on what the deal is and how can I protect this property that maybe we'll get when my folks die. But it wasn't like that at first. And it was a bit combative and a bit, pushing away. And
do you think there was a feeling of being threatened by something?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I think a lot of people share that. The way that this person reacted, I think a lot of people share that. I really encourage and promote financial education and talk to as many people as you can about this kind of thing, because our tax laws are changing potentially dramatically right now, this second, as we're talking. Wouldn't it make sense to just look into how to preserve your life's journey and your assets that you build up over your lifetime? Wouldn't that just seem like a reasonable discussion to have with someone, and a good idea? Because I promise you, that's what wealthy people do. They're not sitting around waiting for someone to die, for the government to tax the estate upon death and have to sell all these assets because they didn't have it set up right. Look into trusts. You better have a will, charitable donations and foundations, and having assets owned by these different companies. Remember, George, it's not what you own, it's what you control. If you're expecting on inheriting anything, or if you want your own kids to inherit something, it costs a couple of bucks, but it's not going to kill you. That's your fucking purpose for the past, when you're 21 to when you're 80, that's your purpose, to work hard, enjoy yourself, and accumulate a bunch of stuff as much as you can, and then give it to your kids, right? That's your job. Why not do that one thing that allows that to actually occur? Because wouldn't it suck if you work your whole life and then you die and you give your estate to your kids and they really don't get much because there's these tax laws that suck it all up.
And especially at that point, when people are passing, it's so difficult on an emotional level that to have an added burden of figuring financial things out and figuring out who gets what and all that kind of thing, it just adds pain to that experience.
Keep an eye on this, George. As you go through life and you see people passing away and there's a survivor, a spouse or a kid, if things are in order financially, you don't even have to ask. You can just sort of look and know. You'll see that if things are in order, this person will be able to go on and live without these concerns for finances and these burdens of finances being later on in life, and what do I do, and the government took everything and I'm not working anymore and I'm fucked, right? You'll be able to see that versus like the person go on and live and be able to travel and hang out with their kids and take care of their kids and maybe take care of another significant other or whatever the case may be. But you'll be able to quickly see who had their business affairs in order and then who didn't. You should not be focused on the amount of money, but rather the concept of protecting your assets and ensuring the most transfer of wealth that you can ensure.
And taking care of those people that you care about. And that's really what you're talking about.
You can't take care of anybody if you don't take care of business. If you don't have anything to take care of them with, it doesn't matter. So take care of your business. And, this person was saying, oh, well, I only make X amount of dollars a year. This isn't really for me. You know what? It is for you. Even wealthy people started off poor at some point. I mean, you got to grow into this stuff. I promise you this, if you've got your eye on the ball and you're on your journey, it's way more likely that whatever wealth you're accumulating is going to get passed down to your kids, and your kids are going to have a better chance and a better start and a better life than if you're not paying attention to things and you go kicking the ball down the field, and your time comes one day and your kids get your house and your car and your 401k and your this and that and the other thing, and you didn't take the time to establish the right estate plan, and your kids have to pay all these taxes when you're dead. What you've just done by saying, oh, estate planning is not for me, is you've promised yourself you're never going to make enough money to meet the criteria of someone that needs estate planning. That's what you've done. You just put the nail in the coffin right there.
Limited your future in that way. Yeah.
I want to know about everything that wealthy people do. I mean, these billionaires, I want to know everything. I want to know, I want to know how they do it. I'm not a billionaire, but I'm going to try and be.
Yeah, I think people, they don't realize that, there must be a different mindset. There must be a reason that they're doing what they're doing. People skip over that, I think, very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Thanks,
right.
George.
Yeah, thank you. Do you feel connected as a human being enough?
George, yes, I do.
Fantastic.
Marcellus, I hope you have a good weekend.
Well, this is George. Thank you.
This is Marcellus.
Have a good week, Peter.
Thank you.